Joining us now, Eugene Robinson, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and an MS Now political analyst, and Alicia Menendez, co-host of MS Now's The Weeknight, soon to be host of On the Line with Alicia Menendez. Such an exciting day to have you both here in person. Eugene, some of these races are being framed simply progressive versus moderate. But is it really about a new generation of Democrats who say it's time to get rid of the old guard?
Yeah, I mean, there's some progressive versus moderate, but I think it's, for the most part, it's new generation versus old generation. I just think people, this political class, this ruling political class, is not seen by the country to have done a very good job. And this ruling class of the Democratic Party is seen to have allowed Donald Trump to be elected twice. I mean, just to put it harshly. And so, yeah, I think people are ready to turn a page. And I think being an experienced incumbent is probably a liability right now.
And that's exactly the message we've heard from David Hogg. Many people know him. He was a gun control activist. He's been basically going around the country in different districts and saying, listen, it's time to get rid of the old guard. It's time to have fresh voices, fresh ideas. I don't know. Do you think that what happens in California, particularly with the three races where you see people in their 70s and 80s versus people half their age, that's going to give us some clues?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to learn a lot tonight about where this generational fight is headed, whether that argument in and of itself is enough to move primary voters. I don't know about you, Eugene, but most of the Democrats I've spoken to say, yes, there are these dividing lines, but they are largely unified tonight in the effort to turn the page on Donald Trump. And if there is a tension, it's this question of how best to do that. But you look at a state like Texas, and they're really running what I would call a patchwork of candidates. In the Rio Grande Valley, there are some more moderate, some might even say conservative candidates the Democrats think are what's going to be necessary in order to win there. And then throughout the state, there are some much more progressive candidates who can win in some of those very blue districts. And so it is, I think tonight, we have to be careful to not extrapolate too much out to what this means actually.
For Democrats, what a concept. Running an appropriate candidate in the appropriate district.
All politics is local. It depends on where you are, knowing your audience.
No, and it has to. It has to, because, there are districts in California that are not the same as those in Iowa, and in one part of California, they're different from another part of California. So the candidates ought to be different, too.
My big question, too, is why Republicans are not having this same battle for the soul of their party, right? Like, as much energy as there is on the Democratic side.
Because they sold it.
Correct. And I think if we're talking about turning the page, the limitation of what we're going to see tonight is that the reckoning is not happening where it really needs to happen.
Where does it need to happen specifically?
It would need to be in those Republican primaries. I mean, there would have to be people who were willing to run, even if they're not going to win. And almost more to the point, behind the scenes, there now has to be money that is spilling in the effort to present an alternative to what Trumpism has wrought.
You could argue that a lot of, I think, what we're seeing today stems from the party's loss. I mean, the Democratic Party's loss is in 2024. And now former First Lady Jill Biden is out. She's got a book, right? And she's on TV. She's promoting it, including on this network. And she talks about the tough decision, which was, does her husband continue to run? Here's what she said.
Do you
continue on?
Or does the president now regret dropping out of the race?
I would never want anyone I loved to go through that again.
But does he believe to this day that he would have defeated Donald Trump in that election?
I believe he would have beat Donald Trump in that election.
You have heard, Eugene, more than a few Democrats quietly saying, why do we have to, bring this back? But does it hurt? I mean, does it make it more difficult for them to pivot to a future-looking message?
I think not really. I mean, I think everyone understands why the former First Lady would think that way. She loves her husband, and she has always supported him, and I understand that why they would think that they would have prevailed in the election. I don't think anybody else thinks that. I don't think most political observers think that. Certainly most Democrats don't think that. But, give them their grace, give them the, because I guess if I were in the same situation, I might believe the same thing.
Yes. No, I was going to say, for all the voters that we talked to, I haven't heard anybody bring up that that's the number one thing on their mind for sure. Yeah. When we wake up tomorrow morning and understanding we may not have the results that we would like to have in California, just because it takes them a while with all the mail-in votes, what's the one thing you're really going to be watching tonight?
In California specifically?
Or anywhere. What's the one race or one...
In California specifically, I think it is interesting, especially talking to people who are based in Los Angeles. They are living a particularly cute version of the reality that we share as Americans, which is they lived through those awful fires. People's homes are still being rebuilt. They have lived through the immigration raids. We're at about a year anniversary of those immigration raids. As someone said to me, you have a huge part of the community and populace of LA that has just been goodbyed and gone missing. And so I am eager to see, does that show up as malaise or does that show up as energy at the polls?
So, speaking of turning the page.
Yeah.
I'm heading to the campaign trail. Well, first, I'm going to do a little vacation, which was long planned, and I basically can't get out at this point. But you are going to be picking up the reins. We're excited. Tell us about the show.
All right. Well, you have not cried, so no, I will endeavor to do the same. This is such a full circle moment. Jansing and Company was one of the first television shows on MS, one of your many shows that I ever got to be a guest on. And I remember one day we were sitting on set like this, and there was breaking news, and they whisked you away from the main set to a side set. And one of your producers, who knew that I very much aspired to host a news show, got in my ear and said, watch everything she does. Study everything she does. There is no one better than Chris Jansing. Okay. And to have a front seat to the rigor of your preparation, to the standard of excellence that you hold yourself to, and then your ability to turn on a dime the minute the news requires that in the service of your audience is something that I am so grateful that in your new role as chief political reporter, I am going to get to continue to do. But mostly, I love that you come to this with a heart of service, and that follows in the faith tradition we share, that you see this as a public good and a public service. And in this moment, we have never needed that type of journalism more. So thank you.
Thank you
for being such a bright light.
I was just going to quote Carly Simon. Nobody does it better. Nobody.
You guys, you are going to make me cry.
Hosting a live television news show is hard, and no one has ever done it with more skill, with more precision, with more accuracy, with more grace than you have. So I just want to thank you for being my host all these many times, and I had a lovely time.
I had a lovely, lovely time.
It's not you two are going to see each other all across the campaign trail.
We will.
Well,
I know.
That's true. Maybe you'll get out there with
I hope
us.
so.
Wouldn't that be fun?
So.
Thank you both. I'm so thrilled that you agreed to be on my final show. Appreciate it. Thank you. Make sure to watch. It's called On the Line, Alicia Menendez. It will debut Monday, June 15th, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on MS Now. You're taking a big chunk of my staff, you lucky.
The best.
I know. They're so good. Thanks to them. Thanks to you.